You know exactly what you need to do. The email, the workout, the project, the conversation you've been avoiding. You know it matters. You know delaying it will probably make things worse. You may even know exactly how to begin. And still, you don't. Instead, you check your phone. Watch one video, get something to eat. Maybe suddenly decide that now is the perfect time to clean your room. An hour disappears. The task hasn't moved. But somehow, you have. And that's the strange part. If you already know what to do, why isn't knowing enough to make you do it? The obvious answer is discipline. Maybe you just don't want it badly enough. But that explanation has a problem. Because sometimes, the things we avoid most are the things we care about most. Imagine it's 8 o'clock at night. Tomorrow morning, you have an important presentation. Your laptop is open. The first slide is blank. You have enough time. Nothing is physically stopping you. So you tell yourself, start. But instead of typing, you stare. Suddenly, the presentation feels enormous. Where do you begin? What if it takes hours? What if you put in all that effort and it still isn't good enough? Then your phone lights up. One notification, you pick it up. Just for a minute. The presentation is still blank. From the outside, this makes no sense. You know the phone isn't more important. You know the presentation won't finish itself. So why did the phone win? Because your mind wasn't necessarily choosing between something important and something unimportant. There was another choice underneath it. One option came with discomfort. The other offered escape. And escape was available immediately. Psychologists call part of this task aversiveness. The term sounds complicated. The idea isn't. Some tasks simply feel unpleasant to do. They might be boring, confusing, frustrating, overwhelming, or emotionally uncomfortable. Psychologist Piers Steele examined decades of procrastination research in a major review. One of the strongest patterns was simple. The more unpleasant a task feels, the easier it can be to delay. And that changes how we understand what just happened at 8 o'clock. The presentation wasn't only a presentation anymore. Thinking about it created an experience. Uncertainty, boredom, maybe fear. Then you picked up your phone, and for a moment, that feeling became quieter. Nothing was solved. The deadline didn't move, but you felt slightly better. And that reveals something important. Avoidance has a reward. We usually imagine procrastination as choosing pleasure instead of work, entertainment instead of studying, scrolling instead of exercising. But sometimes the reward isn't pleasure, it's relief. Psychologists Fuchsia Siroy and Timothy Pickle have argued that procrastination can sometimes work as short-term mood regulation. In simple terms, the task makes you feel bad. Avoiding it makes you feel better, at least temporarily. And that's where the trap begins. The benefit arrives now, the cost arrives later. Avoid the presentation? Relief now. Finish the presentation? Reward tomorrow. Keep exercising? Benefit months from now. Study? Benefit later. Your future may offer the better reward, but your present offers the faster one. And that seems to explain procrastination. Except there's a problem. Because eventually, the exact same task you've been avoiding suddenly becomes possible. It's 11:38. The presentation is tomorrow morning. And now, you're working fast. The phone that distracted you earlier can sit untouched. The blank slides suddenly hold your attention. You accomplish more in the next hour than you did all evening. People often describe this with a familiar sentence. I work better under pressure, but look carefully. The presentation didn't suddenly become easier. It didn't become more interesting. You didn't suddenly become a more disciplined person. So what changed? Time. At 8 o'clock, the consequences of doing nothing belong to tomorrow. At 11:38, tomorrow is almost here. Earlier, avoiding the presentation gave you relief. Now avoiding it creates something worse. Urgency, stress. The possibility of showing up tomorrow with nothing prepared. Eventually, not working became more uncomfortable than working. The balance flipped. And this is the midpoint of the mystery. Maybe procrastination isn't simply about whether you want something. Maybe it's about which consequence feels more powerful right now. This also explains one of procrastination's favorite words, tomorrow. Tonight, tomorrow looks perfect. Tomorrow you'll wake up early. Tomorrow you'll exercise. Tomorrow you'll start writing. Tomorrow, you'll make the call. Planning it feels easy because you're imagining the work. You're not doing it. Then tomorrow arrives. The alarm rings. The bed is warm. The workout requires effort. The document is actually blank. Yesterday's plan has become today's experience. And suddenly, tomorrow becomes later. Psychologists describe the broader difference between what we intend to do and what we actually do as an intention-action gap. The idea is simple. An intention gives you a direction. It doesn't guarantee movement. You can genuinely want the result while resisting what achieving it requires right now. And that's why knowing more doesn't necessarily solve the problem. You already knew. And sometimes, the task you're avoiding isn't meaningless. It's deeply important. Applying for the job, Sending your work to someone you respect, having a difficult conversation, starting something you genuinely care about. Importance can bring its own discomfort. What if you fail? What if you're rejected? What if your best isn't good enough? For some people and some situations, fear of failure or perfectionistic concerns can contribute to procrastination. But there isn't one explanation for everyone. Sometimes the task is boring. Sometimes it's unclear. Sometimes distractions are simply too easy. Sometimes you're stressed. Sometimes several things are happening at once. Which means, why am I so lazy? May be the wrong question. A better one is, what is making this particular task difficult to approach right now? Because now you have something you can actually change. If the answer is, this project feels enormous, then telling yourself, finish the project, doesn't help much. So change the size of the action. Don't finish the presentation. Open the file. Don't write the entire report. Write the heading. Don't exercise for an hour. Put on your shoes. Don't solve everything. Identify the next move. This isn't a psychological trick that guarantees motivation. The task may still be uncomfortable, but you've changed the immediate demand. The problem is no longer do everything. It's do this. One click, one sentence, one phone call, 1 minute. And now you're no longer negotiating entirely with an imagined task. You're responding to something concrete. So let's return to where we started. You knew what to do. You wanted the result. You understood the consequences. And still, you didn't act. Why? Because knowledge is only one part of human behavior. What matters later competes with what you're experiencing now. A distant benefit competes with immediate relief. An important goal competes with immediate discomfort. Your intention competes with whatever feels easier in the present. And sometimes, the present wins. That's why another burst of motivation can feel powerful tonight and disappear tomorrow morning. The problem wasn't necessarily that you didn't care enough. You may have cared deeply. The difficult part was turning that intention into an action you could begin now. So the next time you're staring at something important, knowing exactly what you should do, but doing nothing, don't immediately ask, what's wrong with me? Ask, what is making this difficult to start? Is it boring, unclear, overwhelming, uncomfortable, scary? And then ask something smaller. Not, how am I going to finish all of this? But what can I do next? Maybe it's opening the document, writing one sentence, putting on the shoes, making the call, reaching for the handle, because you probably already know where you need to go. The hardest part isn't always finding the direction. Sometimes, it's crossing the tiny distance between intention and action, and you don't cross that distance all at once. The first click, the first sentence, the first step, the first action. If you enjoy discovering the psychology behind the ordinary things we do without realizing why, subscribe to Understated Minds, because some of the most familiar things your mind does are also the easiest to misunderstand. Knowing can show you where to go, but change begins when intention becomes a concrete action in the present.